Good afternoon. This is the very first video of Literature with Daniel on my series of The Inferno, or the first book of Dante's Divine Comedy. The Divine Comedy was written by Dante Alighieri in the years 1309 to 1321. It took him about 12-ish years to write the book, which is a very long time if you think about it. Very long time indeed. Thing is, it may have taken him that long, but it was worth it because of how much poetic mastery is in this book. Now, The Inferno was the first book, or first part, that he wrote. Inferno, if you take it out of the context of just Inferno, what he really means is hell. Hell is not a good place. It's hot, sweltering hot, obviously, and it's also very, very cold. The deeper you get down, the colder it gets. I guess there can be some arguments like, hey, hell isn't supposed to be cold. But I'm not going to discuss that. What I am going to discuss, though, is what Inferno has to do with the political views that Dante had, because he was very political throughout all the three parts of the Divine Comedy. You can find his political enemies and his political friends, and also prophecies of what will happen to Dante in the following years to come because he was political. Anyway, because I mentioned that there's prophecies in this book, it's worth to note that he may have written the book in 1309 to 1321. The book itself is set in the year 1300, which means that Dante was able to write in his book prophecies because he already knew what happened to himself. For instance, in 1301, that seems correct, 1301, he was exiled from his homeland, Florence, because of his political views on the black and white Guelphs. The black and white Guelphs were two political parties, the black Guelphs and the white Guelphs. They used to just be Guelphs and the Ghibellines. So the Guelphs, they believed, hey, the Pope shouldn't be in control of power with other nations. He should just do what he does with the church. That's literally his point. The Ghibellines, on their hand, said, hey, well, maybe the Pope can, he can tweak a bit things in the government, in any government he wants. The Guelphs and the Ghibellines attacked each other. This happened in Italy, 1290, somewhere around there, and it carried on until 1300s. Now, in the 1300s, the Ghibellines, they get vanquished, right? They're dead. Or they don't die, they just kind of die out. The term dies out. Now you just have Guelphs. And then the Guelphs start fighting. Because, hey, no political party can just be one single-minded for so long. And then they split off. You have the blacks and the whites, like chess. You have the white Guelphs, and you have the black Guelphs. The black Guelphs start thinking, I want more power. And the white Guelphs start thinking, we don't want power. We don't want the Pope to have more power than what he should need. Basically, what they all agreed on in the first place. But then the blacks were thinking, we want power. And then you have this war that happens in Florence where Dante grows up. Well, at this point, he's probably a middle-aged man, probably around 20, 30 years of age. So you have those two parties fighting. Dante, he was part of the Guelphs, and now he's part of the White Guelphs. Sad thing is, the White Guelphs lose a war or battle, not a war, just a battle, within Florence, and then everyone gets kicked out of Florence. All the White Guelphs, many are executed, killed. Then Dante, he doesn't get killed. Instead, he just gets exiled for the rest of his life away from his homeland, which is a very sad fate. He never gets to see his wife again, who still lives in Florence at this time. He gets to see his children, but it's never his wife. Because his wife doesn't want to leave Florence, and she wasn't caught up in the political stuff, which doesn't make sense to me. How she wasn't kicked out because she was the husband of a White Guelph, but anyway. So Dante is exiled during this time, in 1301. When he's exiled, he starts having resentment toward his enemies, which brings me back to the book. So 1301, that happens, and a lot more other stuff happens during his time in exile. Finally, in 1309, that's when he starts writing the book. And then, in the book, he just basically says, hey, I knew all this was going to happen, because all these people in hell, purgatory, and paradise told me that I was going to be exiled, I was going to have all this horrible stuff done to me in 1300. A year before I was exiled. A year before the Black Guelphs won. It's sad of what Dante had to go through leaving his hometown. But then he just comes right back at it, and he's like, oh yeah, well, I kind of knew all this all along. Of course, it's a fictional work. And everyone knew it was a fictional work. So like, haha, yeah, right, Dante. The thing is, though, he may have written the book in 1321. It wasn't released until 1370? Somewhere around there. So, only a few select people must have read it. Dante also puts a lot of horrific prophecies of what will happen to his enemies, his political enemies, the Black Guelphs. It's like, oh, you're going to go to hell, you're going to go to purgatory, you're going to go to hell, and whatnot. He's like, oh, this one person will rule the day that she said something to me because she's going to get punished, or whatnot. He has quite the imagination. Anyway, back to the point. So, he sets it in 1300. In the very first chapter, or first canto, because it's a poem, it shouldn't be considered a chapter, it should be considered a prologue, or an epilogue. One of those things. Something that means that you... Oh, epilogue, sorry. So the epilogue is the first canto. Dante wakes up in a wood, all by himself. Everything's scary. He doesn't know what to do. And he decides, I'm going to climb a hill. Because I don't know my way. Starts climbing the hill. Everything's kind of smooth going. Until he meets a leopard, a lion, then a wolf. He runs back. Because, of course, what would you do if you met a lion, a leopard, and a wolf blocking your path and looking as though they're hungry? They're probably going to want to kill you and eat you. So Dante runs back. He's all scared. Of course, this is the character Dante, not the actual Dante. He's just the character. Then Dante's all sad. He's wondering what on earth is he going to do. And then this century-old, or a couple centuries-old poet comes out of nowhere. And then Dante's like, oh, it's my most favorite poet. It's Dante. It's Virgil. It's Virgil. Now, Virgil is a Roman poet who wrote the Aeneid. He died somewhere in the BCs, near 29 BC, somewhere around there. So he's dead. He's very dead. And suddenly he just appears out of nowhere. And Dante's kind of chill with it. I don't know about you, but if you saw someone who's supposed to be dead for about a couple 100 years, I would not be so inclined to be happy that I'm staring at this dead man. Because does that mean I'm dead? But anyway, Virgil tells Dante, if you want to get home, if you want to come out of this place of despair, that's not hell, by the way, it's just despair, you have to come with me through hell and purgatory. Hell and purgatory. Those are the two places you don't want to go. But yet he has to go. Because he really messed up with his maps or whatever, going somewhere. So Dante's like, oh, okay, fine, I guess I'll do it. That's how the story begins. That's the epilogue. And then you finally get into the actual chapters of Inferno. How he enters Inferno. How he leaves it. And everything in between. Now keep in mind, there's only 33 chapters in Purgatorio and Paradiso and Inferno. And there's that one chapter, which is the epilogue, that makes it a 100-chapter book. 100 chapters. That seems like a lot to read, but it really isn't. So, that's your prologue. That's your little history of how Dante wrote the Divine Comedy. Thank you for watching, and tune in for my next videos, because, as I said in the beginning, this is the first video of my series of the Inferno. And possibly, I'll make another series for Purgatorio, but that'll be later on. First, we have to stick with Inferno. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.